Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Yesterday showed a pretty good day here over the southern southeast coast with sunshine, temperatures pretty warm. Had this band of leftover moisture, brought some rain to Yakutat, scattered showers off to the east. Sunshine here across the southern interior. More cloudiness, but not a lot of rain up to the north. Low pressure here pulling away from the south or from the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutian areas. That's what brought the gusty winds there yesterday, which were still blowing today from the north and northwest, but not quite as strong. A lot of moisture out here streaming northward around high pressure over the Bering Sea, and watching a disturbance back to the off to the east, off to the west and southwest, actually right back in this area that pushed northward, and you can see the front a lot more vividly today as it pushes up to the northeast there. That brought gale force winds here to the extreme western Arctic coast with gusts of 35 to 45 miles per hour, and rain and snow changing to rain here for the western Arctic coast back down across Kotzebue Sound. Pretty brisk winds this afternoon. Kotzebue seeing southeast 20 to 25 miles an hour. And Kivalina northward, though, that's where the stronger winds were, gusting as high as 45 miles an hour at times with rain. And this area will be pushing northeastward, but a lot of sunshine here from the actually the eastern north slope there, all the way down into Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Delta. A little bit of cloudiness here, otherwise the Yukon Delta pretty nice as well on up to the northeast. And then you pick up some clouds, variable clouds here over Cook Inlet with the shower activity right about in this area, and then the rain going on Yakutat, and the low pressure area now is pushed eastward here into about this position, and a wave forming right in this area on the front that's moving north and northeast, or east northeast. And that brought, pushed the gale force winds into the coastal areas here, the southeast coast. In fact, pretty gusty even over the southern inside waters. One of the buoys there, I forget the name of it exactly, but down in this area showing gusts to 43 knots this afternoon. So pretty windy, rain heavy at times, and that's spreading northward again back to Yakutat, and then cutting off to the east, not too bad, Prince William Sound, and some scattered showers out in this area, clouds back across Kodiak. And on the chart today, there's that low center down there, the wave that developed along the frontal boundary there ahead of the main parent low farther to the west, and that's the one that's moving up currently and bringing the increase in the wind and rain across the southern southeast coast. And again, the heaviest rain in the south, pushing northward, and then that scatters out to showers over the interior. Here's the front approaching the western Arctic coast. With the gusty winds and rain with that feature, and then the high pressure here over the Bering Sea, low pressure off to the east. Still have those north to northwest winds, 15 to 30 knots, but tending to diminish here. And then the next system out to the west, bringing some gusty winds and rain into the western Aleutians. We'll see tonight that slides off to the east-southeast, and the frontal boundary right up about in that area there. So looks like some wind and rain will move into Adak, possibly Atka, as the high pressure area here kind of slips down to the southeast a little bit. So light winds, variable clouds to the Perbolos, light winds for the eastern Aleutians there are becoming light, and lighter winds now for the Alaska Peninsula, but staying a little gustier as you get over toward Kodiak Island. We'll see this wave here pushing northward right off the southeast coast like that. So the strongest winds, heaviest rain again tonight here as that front pushes through, with the gale force winds pushing inland until sometime after midnight. Then the winds will begin to diminish from west to east, but that's going to be kind of slow moving. And then the front moves inland with a band of showers and rain pushing in across the Copper River Basin, especially down toward the Wrangell Mountains. Some of that moisture could slip on up into the North Watoke area, but again, just high pressure here over the interior. Light winds and mostly clear skies, especially over the eastern Arctic coast, getting that offshore component to the wind as this system approaches. So downsloping conditions, that's going to tend to inhibit any precipitation back here with those winds coming off the Brooks Range there. But get back toward the mountains, rain and snow, changing to snow, and then snow showers back to the west there behind the front, roughly to about this position sometime after midnight. So you can see the winds will be swinging around to the west and diminishing there in the gustier, where you saw the strong winds today up in that area, and that increase in the wind area will be shifting up to the northeast, but the gradient a little more spread out here, so you're not going to see the strongest winds, or the winds won't be as strong as what they had back here to the west. There'll be an increase in the wind, but not quite as strong as what they were seeing back towards, say, Cape Lisburne on down to Kivalina. And then the front trails on back across St. Lawrence Island into the Bering Sea, where it becomes quite weak. And again, high pressure holding over the area here, and that next storm out there bringing really not moving a whole lot, keeping a chance of some gale force winds, mostly around the central Aleutians and occasionally wet out in that area. But the high pressure axis, more or less eastern Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula, light wind conditions there. Light winds right up into the northern Bering Sea tomorrow. And then we have this front slipping southeastward here, a very narrow band of precipitation to just really a wind shift here onto the southwest, with most of the precipitation from the Brooks Range on up to the Arctic coast there, pushing eastward. And look for those winds to increase here, possibly to gale force on the eastern Arctic coast there, where the gradient's a little tighter, and then diminishing behind the front here on the central coast, and a very strong band of northwesterlies coming in behind that. So probably see some gale force winds return to the western areas late tomorrow or tomorrow night. Otherwise, no change. A lot of sunshine here. South central Alaska, north to northwest breezes here. Could get a little gusty over Kodiak Island. Not too bad though, the Kenai Peninsula. A lot of sunshine, just a few clouds for Prince William Sound, but sunny, fair conditions all the way up the east side here. Look for some showers to continue and linger right through this area of the eastern interior, with the trough axis in that location. That low pressure area now weakens, pulls back to the west a little bit. So the rain and wind diminishing after the solid rain tonight, and the gusty winds that will be trending down or coming down tomorrow morning, scattering out to showers. Another band of moisture possibly developing into a front here with this low center. Could bring some rain in tomorrow night, but this whole thing will be moving off to the south toward the Queen Charlottes instead of cutting up the coastline. So that'll be mostly affecting the southern southeast coast. And we'll see for Monday that does just that. The low center moves to the Queen Charlotte Island, so the southern areas will see the heaviest rainfall, and then that'll be changing over to showers, becoming widely scattered during the afternoon up along the northern panhandle. And that, with the trough axis moving through, should see things improve and dry out. You can see some dry air off the coast here. That will be overnight Monday night, and then with the upper level system coming down from the north, signified by this trough axis right here, that's going to drop into the Gulf. And then on Tuesday, that'll once again increase the southwest flow, and then this area of showers here will probably roll on in and bring more rain in for Tuesday. And it's also that same feature here Monday. You're going to see an increase in the winds along the Alaska Range and possibly Cook Inlet on down to Kodiak, and could see that wind increase once this trough axis moves eastward enough. You'll get the upper level wind flow from the northwest, upper support, and that could kick those wind gusts up in Prince William Sound there, Whittier, on into Valdez. Could see wind gusting as high as 65 miles an hour. That would be late Monday night and into Tuesday, the way it looks at this point in time. But this trough first has to move off to the east, and you get that northwest wind flow building pressures, while at the same time with the trough in the Gulf of Alaska increasing values of vorticity, pressures fall, so that could lead to a pretty windy condition here. Some areas of south central Alaska, Prince William Sound areas on, again, late Monday night or Tuesday. Otherwise, high pressure here, light winds, dry conditions, Bering Sea into the southwest interior, and Bristol Bay, no rain, just clear skies, light breezes, and a sunny day in store for Monday, right up to the Seward Peninsula. And then over the top of the high here, warmer air streaming in. So behind this front, kind of a mixture of precipitation, milder air coming in, but you can see another system developing. Pretty tight gradient there on the western Arctic coast. So look for some more pretty good, possibly gale force winds here on the west side, and then more of a southwest direction and lighter off to the east with some scattered snow showers. Colder air mass sliding into the interior. So it looks like snow showers all the way down to the Alaska Range, down to sea level. And then snow levels will be falling here south of the mountain, south central Alaska, but still mixed rain and snow showers over the mountainous areas, mostly Wrangell Mountains, maybe the Chugach and back along the Alaska Range. And won't be until later on that some cooler air will get a little farther to the south once the entire trough axis aloft moves eastward. Out to the west, the Aleutians, this front still affecting the Adak and Atka area, 25 to maybe 30, 32 knot winds from the east and northeast, just a chance of some rain. Otherwise, the Bering Sea pretty storm-free with high pressure, and that all keeping this activity well out to the west and sending it on up to the north and northeast. Temperatures this afternoon over the Panhandle lower to mid-50s for the most part. Skagway 48 degrees. Yakutat, not on the chart here, but they had rain, 54 degrees. And Sitka, 57 degrees. They dropped off the chart as well, but they were 57 with south winds 25 to 30 miles an hour, and of course rain. 52 Cordova and a 57 at Seward. Anchorage 54, Kenai 56. Mid-50s down across the Homer-Seldovia area. Kodiak 49 degrees. Just 34 at Gulkana this afternoon, but into the 40s across the Tanana Valley with Fairbanks at 46, and a 40-degree reading at Delta there. Northway had 44 degrees, 42 at Eagle, and upper 30s and mid-40s over the north-central part of the state. Bettle's one of the warmer locations at 43. Otherwise, Fort Yukon 34, or 37, 34 at Arctic Village and Anatuvik. Up along the Arctic coast, temperatures range from 27 there at Atchison to 34 over at Barter Island. And then with the southwest winds pushing warm air ahead of that front, 45 degrees at Cape Lisburne, and the 40 to 45 degree range over the northwest areas with 48 at Nome, 52 over at Gamble, Savunga, and out to the southwest we'll see 51 there at Amonic, while Bethel had 49. McGrath 48 degrees, but sleet mute up to 54. Lower to mid-50s here over Bristol Bay. And about the same for the Alaska Peninsula, Eastern Aleutians, and Alaska at 52, 53 in St. Paul, 50 to 55 for the Central and Western Aleutians. Lows tonight, teens and 20s here up over the northeast interior, with back in toward the windier, cloudier, wetter condition areas there, 30s to lower 40s. That same pattern all the way down the coast here into the 40s, or well into the 40s, near 50 over the Aleutians. And southeast coast, mid-50s for the lows over the southern areas, dropping to the mid-40s. Copper River Basin, 20s, and about the same to Susitna Valley up into the Tanana Valley, mostly in the 20s. Highs tomorrow, 30s. Brooks Range, north slope areas into the lower 40s here back to the west. Upper 40s to lower 50s as you get down towards the southwest coast, the Kuskokwim Delta area. And Bethel, 51 for the high tomorrow, 48 for St. Paul. And Bristol Bay, mid-50s possibly. Same thing with Kodiak Island, 50s for the southeast coast, and mid-50s here with sunshine, possibly pushing up towards 60 degrees in the Susitna Valley. Looking at the flying weather, marginal VFR with the IFR more likely tonight, exiting the area tomorrow, leaving behind marginal VFR, possibly breaking out in some areas to VFR in the afternoon. This stuff here, that'll slide in south of the area, although it may catch the southern areas overnight tomorrow night and early on Monday. Otherwise, with that front coming in, could be a band of marginal VFR with that, especially in the upslope areas of the mountainous terrain here. IFR possible there on the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range. Also along the western Arctic coast, VFR with those southwest winds to the east. Out over the Bering Sea, expect marginal VFR anywhere here over the central and southern areas, with IFR where that frontal boundary tends to stall out there over the eastern Aleutians. Forecasting VFR for the Fox Islands and much of the Alaska Peninsula. Passes. Anatuvik, look for sea lanes visibilities to come down throughout the day tomorrow from west to east, possibly becoming IFR, especially on the southern approach sometime tomorrow afternoon. Same forecast for Adigan. A little more optimistic since you're farther east. I'll only bring it down to marginal VFR conditions, but again, the lowest stuff will be showing up on the southern entrance. It'll take longer to come down on the north side. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR. In fact, it's VFR all the way around the Alaska range there. Isabel and Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. And Portage, VFR, better VFR than what you saw today. Had some clouds and rain around, should be gone with higher or less cloudiness and definitely higher sea lanes. For Chilkoot and White, occasionally marginal at times throughout the day. Freezing levels showing the colder air coming in behind the front there, 2,000 feet, but the nudge northward of the warmer air in advance of the front. All the way up to about 6,000 to 8,000 feet here over the southern southeast Bering Sea. And then quite a gradient here over the southeast coast, signifying the location of a pretty strong south-north jet in this location, but the entire pattern shifting eastward. And again, that'll carry that next system more to the south of the area as the jet stream shifts off to the east and southeast, and that'll be overnight tomorrow night and then on Monday. Icing threats, again, more solid, more likely tonight, and then diminishing back tomorrow to some areas of mostly mixed icing, isolated moderate at times, but again trending downward. Another band kind of off the coast there, and then with the front coming into the northwest below 10,000 feet along in advance of the front, colder air, shallower moisture layer, so coming down to about 6,000 feet and below back to the northwest. And then some lingering threats here, mainly over the eastern Aleutians and to the south, roughly above 6,000 to 7,000 feet. Upper level wind flow chart shows the two separate jets here, the Arctic jet and then the upper level low tracking to about this position tomorrow, which on Tuesday will track eastward right to about the central Arctic coast. This trough is going to slide southeastward, high pressure back to the west, building eastward. So this is a trough. Once the trough axis passes into the northeast Gulf of Alaska, that northwest wind flow that brings the threat of those gusty winds with the building pressures over the interior. Otherwise, there's that strong jet tomorrow, actually tonight bringing the storm in, and then I'll be sliding eastward with this upper low tracking right toward the Queen Charlotte Islands tomorrow night and Monday. Otherwise, again, just watching this high pressure move in and take over the Bering Sea. This mostly staying to the south, gradually moving eastward. For the 9,000 foot winds, pretty brisk up there to the northwest with that low, up to 35 knots there in the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, northerlies 25 to 30, western Alaska range down across Kodiak Island. And then you can see still hanging on to some 65 knot southerlies there over the southern panhandle, but that will be mostly off to the east tomorrow. And then 3,000 foot winds, much the same pattern, but lighter at just about every location, with 35 knot easterlies over the central Aleutians. Turbulence, of course, moderate chop, central Aleutians, occasional moderate chop here over the western Arctic coast, possibly St. Lawrence Island, improving over the southeast coast. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
The shores of Lake Erie are not your typical school laboratory, and that's exactly the point of a unique educational effort initiated by NASA's Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Called the Student Remote Sensing Project. It's designed to excite young people like these from St. Edward High School about scientific research. The measurements they're taking today are part of 18 environmental impact studies they've designed themselves. Shoreline erosion and the flow of effluent from wastewater treatment plants are two of the topics under consideration. As with any research proposal, the students had to prepare an abstract, determine the equipment they needed to carry out their studies, and describe the specific research procedures they plan to use. They'll also have to prepare reports summarizing their conclusions. While these student researchers collect ground truth data, one of their teachers, Brother David Martin, works with NASA pilot Bill Rickey to produce aerial photographs used in the studies. Their aircraft is an old T-34 Navy trainer salvaged from a storage facility in Arizona and given new life by the Lewis Aircraft Maintenance Team. Before leaving the hangar, two cameras, one a standard model and the other an infrared unit, are mounted in the plane's fuselage. To Bill Rickey, who has spent a lot of time in advanced fighter jets, the T-34 is hardly a high-performance aircraft. But for Brother Martin, the experience is like something out of Top Gun. Once airborne over the study sites, Rickey positions the aircraft and Martin triggers the cameras which look through two round holes in the T-34's underside. By comparing what they see in the imagery with measurements gathered in the field, students employ the same scientific principles used by professional researchers.
And they had nothing to begin with, no cookbook recipe, no guidance, no hints. They had to design it for themselves. I want them to take the film, see what they can do with it. Maybe it will answer the question they raised, maybe it won't. But that's the beauty of science, and in that sense, it'll be a real learning experience. It's not something that was given to them. They can see now that they could put something together which is actually their own. In a sense, they are creating something new for each and every one of these experiments we did.
The goal is to involve more students and schools around the country and to use the T-34 to do other types of classroom-related studies, including Newton's laws of motion and microgravity research. NASA's Student Remote Sensing Project, giving today's young people a head start on tomorrow's technological challenges.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice here, not much change. Everything kind of in a stationary status quo, roughly 100 or so nautical miles north of Barrow. But once that storm comes across Sunday and Monday here, look for much lighter winds to come in across the area Tuesday and Wednesday. So there's a forecast of some new sea ice forming along the eastern Arctic coast and probably even do a more extent up here along and just off the main ice edge. Otherwise, for the southeast coast, the strong winds and solid rain moving through tonight, and then winds diminishing tomorrow, becoming possibly as low as 10 knots here over the inside waters, coming down south to southeast, 15 to 20 out along the coast. And for Monday, light variable winds here all across the inside water areas, westerly, variable to west, southwest, 10 to 15 along the coast. Moving to Prince William Sound tomorrow, northerlies roughly at about 20 knots, 15 to northwest 20 knots, increasing to 30 knots here for the Barren Islands. Could be some gale force gusts all the way back up into Kamishak Bay. Could see north 25 in Cook Inlet there through the Forelands, dropping back to 20 knots up towards Kinnick and Turnagain Arms, northwest 20 Shelikof Strait, 25 knots for Kodiak Island. And then look for an increase in the winds back here Kamishak Bay, 25 knots, so those could increase to 35 knots Monday afternoon and Monday night. 35 knot winds for the Barren Islands, 25 knot winds here for the western North Gulf Coast, 20 knot northerlies for Prince William Sound, higher gusts though, especially for Passage Canal and those northern bays developing late Monday, but more likely Monday night and into Tuesday. For Bristol Bay, light northwesterlies, same thing here for the Alaska Peninsula, 10 to 15 knots. Small craft advisories, Sitkinak, say over to Chignik. And for Monday, more northeasterly here, 15 to possibly 20 knots at times for the Alaska Peninsula, north 15 for Bristol Bay. And then these northwest winds here for Kodiak Island, southwest of Kodiak Island, starting out 30 knots and by the late afternoon probably coming down to 15 knots with the sea subsiding as well. Aleutians, northeast winds here for the western zones. Still could see some easterly 35-knot winds, mostly south of Adak and Atka. Lighter winds over the Fox Islands, but those winds will pick up to the 15 to 20-knot range for Monday, and could even see some small craft advisories. More northeast, no change. That's the only change for the central Aleutians, becoming lighter out to the west. For the southwest coast, northwesterlies, 15 to 20 knots here right along the coast. Otherwise, lighter winds under high pressure out over the Bering Sea. And then that high center right about in this position, building inland on Monday, so pretty light winds from westerly direction, St. Lawrence Island. Northeasterlies 10 to 15 here over the southeast Bering. And up along the Arctic coast, that front coming eastward, possible gale force winds here in advance of that front on the far east end. Then these winds dropping back, they shouldn't be any higher than these values, small craft advisories, and then some northwest gales coming back in toward Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. And then for Monday, westerlies 30 to 35 knots, southwest 25 knots on the east side, and lighter winds across Kotzebue Sound at about 20. Tonight, this front moves inland, gusty winds, gale force winds, heavy rain, heavy at times, over the panhandle as that front moves through. The other one up here coming into the coast and moves to about that position, sliding southeastward. Upper level trough will be digging southeast into the interior, pulling a cold air mass with it, and rain changes to showers. Less wind for the panhandle tomorrow. This will slide mostly south of the area, high pressure on Monday. Have a great evening, and thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.